prison. And come home before it's too late. Well, that warning coming from California State University system to undocumented students who are studying abroad, the largest four-year public university system in the entire country. School officials now say that they're worried President-elect Donald Trump won't let those students back into the country after Inauguration Day. Well, writing to study abroad administrators, quote, unless they return to by January 19th, 2017, there is no assurance that they'll be allowed to return to the United States. There is a realistic possibility they will be denied entry. So if you're illegal here, I guess you can go to school elsewhere and then.
DHS Secretary, that is. Sources tell Fox that President-elect Donald Trump is expected to nominate Georgia Congressman and fierce Obamacare critic Tom Price to head up the Department of Health and Human Services. We're also told to expect another big announcement today. What is it? Don't know for sure, but our next guest, North Carolina businessman John Allison, is said to be a possible contender for U.S. Treasury Secretary, and he met with Mr. Trump yesterday. And you know what? Through the magic of television, right now he's joining us from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. John, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Let's start at the very beginning. We've been watching the elevators, the doors open, people disappear. You got in the elevator yesterday, you went up to the 26th floor, you go into the corner office. Who's there and what happens?
Well, it's very similar, I think, to a lot of job interviews. Of course, President-elect Trump was there, Vice President-elect Pence was there, Steve Bannon was there. Some other people came in and out. Steve Mnuchin came in and out. It looked like a job interview, and also I think a sincere effort to get a little advice.
Sure. When it comes to advice, you have plenty of it. As a guy who's been in business for a very long time, among other things, you would like to abolish the Federal Reserve. I understand you would like to replace Dodd-Frank with copies of Atlas Shrugged, which I think is funny, and return to the gold standard. So yesterday when the President-elect of the United States said, so John, what do you think we should do? What was your advice to him?
Well, in regards to monetary policy, while my long-term ambition would be to get rid of the Federal Reserve and go back to a private banking system that we had in the United States, that Scotland had, that Canada had, that worked very well, we're not going to get there in my lifetime. That's just not going to happen. And the main thing we need to focus in terms of the Federal Reserve is on two areas. In monetary policy, we've got to have discipline, and we need some kind of rule. I like the Taylor rule. I like some kind of GDP indexing rule, so that the Fed can't just do what it wants to do and create what I believe is a very difficult mess that it's got to undo what it's done. So discipline on the Fed and effectively taking away a lot of its power, which is it's a scary organization because there's no control of the organization. And the other side is a radical reduction in regulation. I'd like to see the repeal of Dodd-Frank. I don't think that'll happen politically, but Dodd-Frank can be radically revised. And I believe that Dodd-Frank has played the biggest single role. There have been a lot of other factors, the biggest single role in the lack of economic growth, particularly the creation of new businesses. Because commercial banks, like my old bank, BB&T, used to be venture capital, small business lenders, and we can't do that anymore, and it's really hurt the economy. Well,
we might be hearing your name one of these days very soon as somebody on the cabinet. John Allison, former chairman and CEO of BB&T. Sir, thank you very much for sharing a little of what went on yesterday over at 57th and 5th Avenue.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You as well. All right. Meanwhile, straight ahead on this Tuesday, the Muslim refugee who tried to murder college students with his car and a butcher's knife was in the country as a permanent legal resident. What does permanent legal resident mean? Judge Napolitano here with a closer look at what he was doing here in the first place. Good morning, Judge. And have you seen these pictures? We now know what Hillary Clinton has been doing out in the woods. Okay. I can't wait. Fox News alert, as terror is eyed in the Ohio State attack yesterday morning, we're learning more about the suspect.
His name is Abdul Artan. He was a legal permanent resident. So what does that mean, and what kind of rights does he have?
And how many more are there waiting in the wings? Joining us right now, Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano.
Morning, Judge.
Judge, how do you get a status like this?
You apply for it. And if you fit into any one of the statutory requirements, like you are a refugee from an inhospitable place, in his case, somewhere in the Middle East, you have a very, very unique talent, that's not his case, that you can bring to the United States, which is sorely lacking here, or you have extraordinary family ties here, whereby it would be a hardship to the family if you're not here. He fits in the first category. Whatever country he came from, he couldn't go back to without serious danger from. What rights they have? They have the same rights as the rest of us, except they can't hold office and they can't vote. But if he doesn't commit a crime, he can stay here for the rest of his life. Now, he's dead. If he had survived this and been prosecuted and convicted and served his time, he then would have been deported. Now, you may say, well, what good is that? Well, if a permanent legal resident commits a felony, basis for deportation.
Well, he was a permanent legal resident, but apparently, according to the stuff we're seeing on Facebook and everywhere else, he didn't feel like he fit in, and ultimately, it looks like he's self-radicalized and did this.
You know, there's a lot of use of the word terror. Is what he did terrifying? Absolutely. Was he connected to a foreign terrorist organization? They're going to have to look for that, because if he was, they have to know about that line of communication.
He had a stop in Pakistan.
Yes.
Judge.
The technical definition, the legal definition of terror is 2 or more acts of violence intended to disrupt or change the policy of the government. Did we have 2 acts of violence? Yeah.
Yes.
We had the car plowing into people, and we had the slashing. Each one of those slashes is a separate act of violence. So the question is, we don't know this because he's dead. We have to infer it from the evidence about him. What was his intent?
Yeah, 11 people injured. 1 is in critical condition this morning. So, Judge, you know, it's a different world now. Should students be able to carry guns? We hear all this gun control stuff from the liberals, but should students be able to carry guns to prevent stuff like this?
In my view, the short answer is yes, if they qualify for the use of them. I was appalled, but not surprised, at the left yesterday using this incident, which did not involve guns. The only gun involved saved life at the hands of that heroic cop.
Here he is. Tim Kaine tweeted out immediately, deeply saddened by the senseless act of gun violence. Ann Donahue tweets it, sure would be presidential for Trump to use Twitter to condemn gun violence. And others, when will we have gun control in this country? Next thing you know, it's a knife in a car.
You know, I hate to put him on the spot, because a friend of mine, a friend of yours, is going to be on the show in a few minutes, Governor Greg Abbott of Texas. Ask him if this would have happened on the campus of the University of Texas. Answer no, because if they're qualified, meaning if they know how to use it, they can carry. This guy would have been stopped before the police got there.
People, I think, at least this administration seems to believe, and the hot people I know who they're hiring seem to believe, that they understand this is Islamic extremism. Indications are it's leading that direction, and that you should not blame the gun or the knife or the car. It's the ideology and the person.
But you can blame a government that doesn't let you protect yourself.
Exactly. All right, Judge.
No argument.
I say that with great respect.
Judge, I rest your case.
All right, I say that with great respect to John Kasich, the governor of Ohio, our former colleague. It's not his fault, but it's part of the system.
All right, Judge, thank you very much.
You're welcome, guys. All the best.
All right, coming up this Tuesday, happening right now, fast-moving wildfires surrounding popular tourist spots in Tennessee, including Dolly Parton's Dollywood theme park. The images just coming in as people are rushing through that area to get out.
And more on this Ohio State University attacker, what we can learn from his anti-American social media posts. The man who killed Osama bin Laden, Rob O'Neill, is walking into the studio, and he's going to talk about that next. Good morning to you and your family. It's Tuesday. It's November 29th. I'm Ainsley Earhart, and we start with this, a Fox News alert. A terror investigation is now underway after a Somali-born student goes on a slashing spree. His chilling anti-American message just 3 minutes before that massacre, and how a quick-thinking cop, whose picture is right there, the hero in all of this, prevented things from getting a lot worse. We are live from Columbus.
And another Fox News alert just moments ago. It became official. President-elect Donald Trump announcing who will fill one of the most important cabinet positions on his cabinet. And apparently he's not done yet for today.
And mystery solved. We now know what Hillary Clinton has really been doing out in the woods. Good mornings are better with friends.
We start this hour with a Fox News alert. The Ohio State University student who rammed his car into a crowd, then pulled out a butcher's knife and slashed as many people as he could, may have been motivated by terror.
You think so? This morning, brand new information about the attacker's past as investigators try to piece together a motive. I'm really scratching my head on this one.
Garrett Tenney is live in Columbus with the very latest for us. Garrett, what do we know this morning?
Well, good morning, y'all. As this investigation continues, we're also learning more about Abdul Artan, the 18-year-old student who carried out this attack yesterday. Law enforcement sources tell us that he was born in Somalia and came to the U.S. with his family as a refugee. In May, he graduated from the Columbus State Community College, and this was his first semester at Ohio State University. And neighbors told the Columbus Dispatch he attended daily prayer services at a local mosque. And as we often hear in these situations, they said that they were shocked Artan would do this and that he was always very kind and polite. And as investigators go through the 18-year-old's electronic devices and communications, we're told they have already found a Facebook post that they believe he made only a few minutes before his attack. One law enforcement source described it as a declaration against unfair treatment of Muslims and said it appeared to condemn U.S. military action in Muslim countries. Artan injured 11 people in his attack, and we're expecting to receive an update on their condition later this morning. And for the students here at Ohio State University, later this morning, they will return to classes for the first time since yesterday's attack. Back to y'all in New York.
All right, Garrett Tenney joining us live from Columbus. We thank you. Now let's bring in Rob O'Neill. He's the man who killed Osama bin Laden when he was a U.S. Navy SEAL. Rob, good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
When you look at this story, it's terrible. And apparently 3 minutes before the rampage, he posted a rant online. He does not like the country.
He was angry because he was worried about praying somewhere in public on Ohio State campus because he didn't want people to look at him and think that he potentially was a violent person, the type of person that might run people over with a car and then stab them. And then
Exactly.
He became the person that ran people over and stabbed them. And this is just proof. This is, I mean, it's mind-boggling. They're still wondering about a motive for this. This is exactly what ISIS says. It says it in their old magazine, Dabiq, the new one, Rumiyah. You don't need to be a martial arts expert or even own a weapon in order to kill many, many non-believers and terrorize a nation. This is exactly what they're telling them to do. Stay there and do it.
But now look at the cities this is happening in. It's no longer New York City and the Millennium Bomber in Los Angeles. You're looking at Orlando, San Bernardino, and Columbus. So they're saying, won't hit you anywhere, America.
Anywhere.
Now, Rob, if you were trying to stop a suicide bomber in Baghdad, you pretty much know where to put the blast walls. But where do you put the blast walls in America?
It's going to take help from now the Somali community, a lot of Sunni Muslim communities, and even Shia Muslim communities. We need to know where the threats are coming from, how they're being radicalized, be able to monitor their Facebook posts. There needs to be profiling, not racial profiling, but just behavioral profiling. Who are the people that are saying this stuff to them? What do their social media stuff say? I mean, there's a fine line between privacy and safety, but I bet there's 11 families in Ohio right now that don't care about that, that would rather not have their children run over by some madman.
You know, a lot of people went to the polls and voted for Donald Trump because they're sick of this kind of stuff, and they want our country to be great again, and they want these kinds of guys not to be let in our country. What's your message for Donald Trump?
Well, the message is we need to have better vetting to bring people in, and these are failed states like Somalia, like Libya, like Egypt, and then Syria.
He took a lot of heat for that.
He did take a lot of heat for that, but and even Hillary admitted that we don't know how we're vetting these people. And I mean, yeah, it's nice to help migrants, and I can feel bad for them and the stuff they're dealing with, but a lot of times it's not our problem. If the safety of our country comes down to it, we need to keep Americans safe.
But it's also hard to know. You know, if you came in this country 9 years ago, it's hard to forecast what somebody's going to be like in 9 years.
Yeah, you can't forecast it at all, but you can't. You got to monitor some of these people. It's like an online stop and frisk.
Someone had to have seen some signs, though. I mean, you don't just all of a sudden get in your car and run people over
I would hope not,
and stab them with a butcher knife. Someone saw signs.
Look at the guy in New York City, Ainsley, though. I mean, he's dropping bombs on 23rd Street, 27th Street in northern New Jersey. He was doing it for years, training in his backyard. No one said a word.
It's that fine line, too. If you see something, say something. Nobody wants to say something because it'll get branded an Islamophobe.
Sure.
Which, I mean, yeah, you don't want that. But also, if someone's doing that kind of stuff or something a radical imam in a mosque, someone needs to say something, and it's because it's going to come from the ideology, not the weapon. Like you notice, I've heard it talked about too that as soon as this happened, it's to blame the guns. Look at the gun violence. There was no gun; there were weapons. What are we going to ban cars?
It's a gun that stopped this guy.
A gun stopped him. Yeah, the only one there with the gun was the guy that stopped him. And we're lucky we had a gun on campus. He was a minute away. Imagine if this guy got out and started stabbing 11 people. He would have cut heads off.
You know what I'm heartened by? Adam Schiff, the Democrat, came out and said this looks like to be an act of terror. Maybe this is the beginning of people using their common sense rather than political lens.
I don't think terrorism is a right or left side of the aisle, and I hope there will be common sense.
It has been for 8 years.
It has been for a while in political promises, but we've seen how the nation responds to it by electing Mr. Trump because he actually takes a hard line, and he's not singling anyone out. He's just saying we're gonna make America safe. That means all of us, all Americans.
Do you think people were so afraid to say that they were going to vote for him? We saw that in the polls, and then he wins. Do you think now people are going to start not being as afraid to come out and say, my neighbor is acting crazy?
I don't know. It's hard to say because look at these college campuses now. They took down the American flag because that's offensive. I mean, we need to really get out of some of this politically correct nonsense before we fail to exist.
Well, let's hope that is around the corner.
I would hope so.
Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about this. Yesterday over at Trump Tower, Mr. Trump met with former General David Petraeus. There he is right there with walking in, Hope Hicks right there. What do you think about this guy, a potential Secretary of State?
I don't know him personally. I've worked for him through certain commands and other generals, and I like him. I mean, he's a four-star general, head of the CIA. He's got a PhD in foreign affairs from Princeton, so the guy's qualified. They're going to bring up the stuff with the classified materials, and that's justifiable to bring that up, but everyone makes mistakes. He made a mistake. Will it matter? It's not my decision. I think he's qualified. You do need to. I would say that if he gets in there, he'll be more about the Middle East and getting more involved in places like Syria and things like that because he was there for Iraq. But he did think outside the box and engineer the surge.
Another reason why I'm encouraged is that most people know you guys do the fighting, but also there was a lot of diplomacy and interaction that went on to make the surge work.
Oh, of course.
They had to win people over. They knew the need for Ambassador Crocker to work the political end while he worked the personal end.
He was smart enough to realize, too, that a lot of peace comes through strength, and we were able to, as a guy on the ground fighting against a lot of these terror groups, we were the muscle behind it, and once they started he was smart enough to realize the way to defeat some of these enemies is to kill them, and
What's the message inside the military community when Lieutenant General Michael Flynn has a key position, Mattis is poised to take Secretary of Defense, and maybe Petraeus is a finalist to Secretary of State?
The guys that I know, the men and women inside the military are happy their generals getting back in there for some military positions because they understand what's going on in the military, and they did get fired by the Obama administration, which says something because there was a disconnect between the Pentagon and the White House. So a lot of guys are happy about this. And I know as far as Mattis, I mean, everybody loves Mattis. If you're the type of person that has quotes about a war that you're in and he's still there, you're a pretty good dude and they like you.
He seems like a tough guy.
He's definitely a tough guy.
Sure. And just the size of the military it's so tiny now because the resources that once upon a time had gone to the military now are going into other things. So, one of the things that Donald Trump has said is he will make America strong again and rebuild the Army, which of the armed forces was the least or the weakest in a...
Yeah, I mean, he'll put the money where it's supposed to be. I believe he'll get rid of a lot of the needless redundancy, but he'll also... The way you get peace, like I said, was through force, through a deterrent. If we have a strong military and it's a deterrent, a lot of the stuff's not going to be happening like it is right now in China, and in the Ukraine, and in Raqqa, and in Libya.
And the Iranians were fixed on our helicopters yesterday as we're about to take off an aircraft carrier. That is not a country that is concerned about us.
They weren't. They are now. I mean, look at Hassan Rouhani, who is the president of Iran, the day after Trump got elected. He's like, now this deal we have, that was to the United Nations, not the United States, so you can't just come in and take it. Okay,
Rob, tonight is the big dinner, the private dinner with Mitt Romney. It's
we're going to go.
Right. We're not invited.
We're busy.
I wasn't invited. My invitation must have got lost in the mail, too.
Well, Donald Trump could choose him as Secretary of State. He's on the list. But this is what our viewers were saying. We asked in a poll on I think it's on Facebook. It's on Facebook.
Right, so this is
scientific. Who do you want picked? Right. Who do you want him to pick? Rudy Giuliani got 52%. General Petraeus, 33%. Someone else got 9%. Mitt Romney only got 6%.
That guy named someone else beat.
He is really good.
A lot of Trump supporters are still upset because he was leading the Never Trump things. And I mean, Mr. Trump's, it's kind of, he's showing he can mend fences because he knows that Romney's qualified regardless. So he's at least giving him a chance and having several meetings with him. So that says something. I mean,
well, then what is he going to have to do to win over our viewers?
You know what? That's not for me to say. I would say be charming, but that's not hard for Mitt Romney to do. But I wouldn't go in there with a never Trump attitude. It's probably not going to work out too well.
Probably right. All right, Rob.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. It's about 7:11 here in New York City, and time for a Fox News alert.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're off to a good day. We start with that alert right now. Raging wildfires turning a Tennessee tourist spot into a tinderbox. Terrified guests now trapped inside. Burning hotels as cars burst into flames. Fast-moving flames. Look at this right here. Devouring at least 30 buildings in the Gatlinburg area of Tennessee. That's less than 10 miles from the popular Dollywood Resort. Now look at this wedding chapel right here. You can see its screen left looking perfect and beautiful, and then screen right up in flames. More than 1,000 people are now in shelters as mandatory evacuation orders now remain in place. We'll follow the story as it develops. Another survivor just found in the wreckage of a horrific plane crash in Colombia. Officials now saying that 6 people miraculously survived the charter plane crash that took place overnight in the mountains there. The flight carrying 81 people when it crashed in the mountains just outside the city of Medellin. On board that plane, a Brazilian soccer team headed for the finals match in Colombia. This chilling selfie was posted just before the deadly accident. It shows 2 of the players who are believed to have survived that wreck. The caption telling fans, "We're coming, Colombia." Well, right now we know the pilot made an emergency call about an electrical failure right before that crash. And this flight radar, you can see the plane as it circles before it ultimately crashes. President Obama and Vice President Biden will skip Fidel Castro's funeral on Sunday. That decision coming as critics urge the White House not to mourn the dictator. Hundreds of thousands paying their respects in Cuba. President-elect Donald Trump threatening to freeze a recent thaw in diplomatic relations with that country. Mr. Trump tweeting this, quote, "If Cuba is unwilling to make a better deal for the Cuban people, the Cuban-American people, and the U.S. as a whole, I will terminate the deal." And we may now know what Hillary Clinton is really doing in the woods, in addition to taking selfies with fans. It turns out some say that she may be laying the groundwork for a 3rd run in 2020. A former columnist for the National Review says her random viral encounters with so-called average voters may not be so spontaneous after all. The report also says that Clinton's campaign support for recounts in those 3 battleground states is all a part of a bigger plan to keep her options open for 2020.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
A lot of momentum, a lot of wind in her back for that one.
Wow.
Right.
We'll see how that goes. Thanks.
That's never going to happen. Never going to happen.
Bernie Sanders just passed
shocked.
out, I think, somewhere.
All right, a Fox News alert. More on our top story, that horrifying attack at Ohio State by a Muslim immigrant. Was it terror? Dr. Sebastian Gorka says this has jihad written all over it. He is live next.
And the war on Christmas continues. Why a 15-year tradition carrying a tree to the top of a mountain is now...
So tired of this. Thought that was one.
We're gonna find out.
Fox News alert, chilling new details about the Al-Qaeda worshipping teenager from Somalia and his violent rampage that ended yesterday morning at Ohio State University.
Our next guest says the attack has all the sinister marks of ISIS. And here with a look inside the Somalia community is author of Defeating Jihad, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Good morning, Dr. Gorka. So you say this has the hallmarks of ISIS.